Welcome back to the show. I'm so excited for my conversation today. Steph, I'd love to get started with having you tell us who you are and what you do in the events industry.
Yeah, awesome, Shenandoah. Thank you so much for having me. Longtime listener, first time attendee, so stoked to be here. But my name is Steph Couch. I have about 15 years in the industry. Actually started in weddings back whenever I was in college and right afterwards, but I very quickly became not a wedding person. I truly got tired of eating mashed potatoes all of the time and now will not eat mashed potatoes ever.
Oh, see, I think that would be the best part of working in weddings.
It is. But you just kind of look after you eat mashed potatoes like every Friday and Saturday for like 8, 10 months in a row, you're like not into mashed potatoes anymore. So left weddings, kind of, I call it, went corporate, and was at an agency for about 11 years before starting my own firm, starting my own little business. So I'm the founder and executive producer at Finn. We're based out of Pennsylvania, and we're focused really on supporting clients in all scales of experiences, wherever that experience might be, whether it's in a ballroom or in a different venue or it's outside, just helping out those clients.
Amazing, amazing. And today we're talking about something like, honestly, we were talking before we got on, and I was like, oh, I should just hit record because we're already like getting into so much good stuff, and I'm so excited for this conversation about like scaling, because I think, as you know, I've been a planner also 15 years, and a lot of it has been rinse and repeating a lot of events, right? Especially in field marketing, you're like, okay, we're going to 30, 50, 80, 100 trade shows this year, and getting really dialed in a process so that you're not losing your mind at every show where you're like, wait, why are we doing this? And like really getting like dialed in. And I've worked on teams where it's really dialed in, and it just is like a well-oiled machine, and you're moving through it, and everyone knows what their role is, everyone knows what's expected for every event. And then the challenges that you have when that strategy is not set up from the beginning, and it's a lot of, we're going to this event because everyone's at this event, and so we must have to be at this event kind of thing, right? Or oh, we always go to this event, and it's like, well, is that, should we?
Right?
Why?
Yeah,
Why do we
right?
do that? Right? So tell me, I know your agency experience really helped you hone in on this, and like talk about what it means to be working with like an economy of scale, and like what is that term and why do event planners need to know what it is?
Yeah, so I think you can kind of break it down into two buckets, right? There's the cost bucket for sure, but then there's also the strategy bucket when we think about economies of scale. And let's focus on the strategy first, right? So doing a lot of kind of annual reoccurring meetings, like you mentioned, but also the same meetings for this one organization. So you could have a top leadership summit, and then a middle leadership summit, and then a sales meeting, and then a marketing meeting, right? So when you have all of these meetings kind of within the same organization throughout the year, there's nothing more confusing to your employees and your attendees than having 5 different themes, right? Because one theme could be accelerate, and then another theme is growing to greatness, and then another theme is full throttle, and then you have these attendees that are, again, all within the same organization, but some are being told to accelerate, some are being told to grow, and you're like, are we supposed to grow, or are we supposed to win together, or are we supposed to accelerate, or are we supposed to do it all together all of the time, all of the above? So I think, from the strategic perspective, right, when you kind of look at your organization's programs holistically, and whether you're planning out for the first 6 months of the year or you're planning out for the whole year, when you can look at them holistically and gravitate towards that theme that aligns with your goals and objectives for the year, for the fiscal year, you're setting everybody up for success. You're setting up your presenters to deliver consistent and cohesive messages, but you're also giving your attendees the best chance to not only absorb the information, but then act upon it and then move forward, whether they're moving forward in their day-to-day job, whether they're moving forward to disseminate that information to their teams and get more people on board. You're just making it a lot easier for everybody involved to deliver consistency and something that's cohesive.
Yeah, it's interesting how when you're designing like internal programs how important that messaging is kind of across the organization. And you'll see it all the time with companies that'll say, okay, each department is doing their own thing, and it's like, well, aren't we all supposed to be working together, and aren't we all supposed to be focused on the same kind of mission, and how are we pulling it all back together, like you said, if everyone is kind of doing different things? And then I think that's also translating into your external events, right? So if you're not really clear on that messaging from the beginning of, okay, and I recorded an episode of the podcast yesterday talking about experiential things and brand measurements, and how I feel like sometimes people use, well, we got a lot of brand exposure as like we didn't actually reach our goals, and so we'll just say that it was a brand exercise, right? And it's like, well, was it meant to be a brand exercise, or are you just saying that because it didn't go the way you expected, and so now you're just trying to salvage the reason why you did it, right? And
exactly.
So, like, if you're doing an event, if you're doing multiple events, but at every trade show you're showing up with a different message, or you're hosting a lot of hosted events and your message it's changing every 3 months when someone's coming, like, you want to get really dialed in on what that is, and you want people to, whether internally or externally, to be able to think in like 1 or 2 words of, what is it that we're doing here, right? And is it growing? Is it learning? Is it accelerating? Is it disrupting? Like, whatever the key words are, like, what is it that people are going to walk away with? And then have that connected to either your brand or to the work that they're doing for the company.
Yeah, because Shannon, I cannot tell you the number of times where, a client will reach out and say, like, I want a logo for my event. And we're like, great, but like, let's go back and think first, like, why are we bringing everyone together? Even if it's an annual meeting, right? Like, even if it's the annual sales meeting, why are you bringing the people together for this event? Because if the answer is, well, because we do it every year, we need to step back even further.
You're already failing. You've already failed.
You've already not started off on the right foot. That's for sure. Because you're right. Like, we really need to kind of sit back and say, like, oh, great. Like, just because we do it every year, that doesn't mean you have to keep doing it every year. And if you are having a meeting just because you always have a meeting, why are you bringing the people together? What do you want them to think? I always, I go back many, many years ago. Actually, one of my clients, while I was at the agency, their kind of methodology was like, think, feel, do. And then I like to carry that on. The agency I worked at carried it on. I carry it on throughout my day-to-day now. Like, what do you want your attendees to think about the event? What do you want them to think while they're there? What do you want them to feel in the room and in the experiences that you are bringing them together for? And then what do you want them to do afterwards, right? And I think it's something that everyone can kind of be as a good guide step, a quick little check and like guess and check on what are the purposes of us bringing all of these people together. Because sometimes when you start asking about goals and messages and learning objectives and KPIs, people start to panic a little bit, right? Because those are big industry words. But if you can dial it down to like, great, what do you want the people to think about? What do you want them to do? And what do you want them to feel? We can very quickly come to a realization of, great, like, then here are some themes that ladder back to that. And then that can be your guidepost from a holistic organization level moving forward. Because if your leadership summit is challenging people to be bold, then you certainly want all of your other sub-departments to also be bold, right?
Yeah. And it's that consistency. And I think years ago I learned this, and I don't know how true the stat is, but it's a good anecdote. It's a good fact if it's true, but that people will kind of remember 3 things you told them in a session. All right, that it doesn't matter if your session is 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. Their brain is only going to take in those 3 things, and you want to make sure that they're walking away with the 3 things you want them to walk away with. And if there's too much else going on, then they're not going to walk away with those 3 things. So I think that when I'm planning content specifically, I'm thinking, okay, what 3 things are people going to walk away with, or what is the action we want them to take after this? And keeping it in mind that people are not going to remember most of what you said in your session, even if it was so thought-provoking, even if they loved it, even if they took 100 like pictures of the slide deck.
They held up their phone, and you can see, like, as soon as you always know it's a good slide when you're sitting at front of house and all of a sudden everyone pulls their phone out and takes a picture of the slide, right?
Exactly. But then, like, I also always wonder, like, how many people actually go back and look at those, right? Like, how many people are like, yes, but realistically what's probably happening is they're like me, and 5 weeks later they're going through their camera roll and they're like, oh, right, I forgot about that.
Right? Yeah.
So keeping it, like, simple, keeping the theme consistent, and it elevates your brand, right? Internally, culturally. I've worked for organizations that have had really clear, like, mission, vision, values, and it sounds really hokey, but because it was so obvious, like, it was literally painted on the walls, like, they turned, like, a border of the whole office into the values, and it's like, it's in your face all the time. Like, there was no question. Like, I haven't worked there in over 5 years. I could probably still list them off perfectly because it was just so ingrained in the work that we were doing, and there was no confusion, and the whole team knew to work within those, right? And so we could say, okay, we want to add this or we want to do that. All right, what is the goal of the organization and our goal, and how is it related to our values, right? And how is it either allowing us to deliver a better customer experience, allowing us to be a good place to work, like, and having those, like, locked in makes such a difference. And I think so many companies think that they're just an afterthought, but they're not. They make your work easier to do for everybody, right? Because if you have a new leader coming in all the time, or leadership changing every quarter when you meet, and probably, like, once a year you can come up with your word of the year and your mantra of the year, and have that come up at every quarterly meeting. Okay, like, remember when we talked in January, this is what we were aiming towards. Okay, well, here's how we're tracking. Here's what we're going to do in the next 3 months to get us there, right? It just makes everything so much easier when you're locked in and committing. And I had a VP who used to say, we debate for debate, but we don't debate for consensus. And it's just that everybody's opinions matter, but not everybody's opinion is going to be the opinion we go with, and we commit to it, and then we move forward. And
I love that.
Right, like, we learn. Sometimes we're like, hey, that was not the way we wanted to do. Like, hey, we've learned something. We're going to change it. We're going to tweak it. But there was not ambiguity, right? And so often, especially in fast-moving companies, there's so much ambiguity because it's like, okay, now we're focused on selling to small businesses. Oh, never mind, we're focusing on enterprise. Oh, we're switching back to small business. And people are like, I'm still working on the small business thing from the first time we started with the small businesses. So can I just go back can I pull that back up, right?
Right. And again, for some of these folks, and again, depending on how the organization is structured and who's attending what events, like, sometimes you have folks that are attending multiples of these events. So to your point, you're like, oh, wait, but now I'm supposed to be in all in together, but I was still focusing on a bold beginning. So, like, where am I supposed to, like, set my feet down now? And I think too, again, like, as an agency partner, as a third party partner to a lot of these organizations, it really truly helps from that decision making and cost perspective too, right? Because anytime then we're trying to make a decision, like, there's nothing more painful than, well, let's just do it because it's cool, right? Like, okay, let's bring this idea to the forefront, but does it answer our goals and objectives? Does it tie back to our theme and why we are bringing these people together? Does it tie back to what we are challenging the attendees to think, feel, do as a part of this kind of overarching event strategy? And then very quickly, when you can take an idea and ladder it against those items quite quickly, you're like, oh yeah, maybe it's a cool thing to do, but it doesn't answer any of the goals that we're trying to move forward on. So maybe it's something that we can just table to the next time.
Well, and it reminds me of, like, theming. Like, I or like 2023, everything had to be a Barbie thing. And I enjoyed the Barbie movie. I bought a Barbie shirt. I wore my Barbie shirt to the movie.
Yep.
There were some great brand activations, and then some that I'm like, what? Like, you didn't even tie it in. Like, you didn't even make the Barbie about your business. Like, it's just Barbie. Yep. Like, it just, like, you just put pink bubbly letters on things. Like, it, like, you know, and you don't have to hop on every trend. And I remember, you know, 2024, I had a podcast episode about, like, trends of that year and how, like, you look really weird when you're hopping on the Barbie trend without at least tying it back. Like, if you're, you know, let's say you're a vet company and you have veterinarian Barbie. Great. Love it. You tied it. There's a connection. But if you're just like, step into our Barbie booth that has nothing to do with what we sell or what we do or anything, right? And then it, like, years ago, this is like going back before the lockdowns, I went to an event where there were multiple hospitality suites. And one of them was Game of Thrones, like, years after the show had ended. And I'm like, why? Like, and it didn't even make sense. Like, it wasn't even like, oh, winter is coming and we sell snow shovels. Like, that, again, if you can tie it in, like, I'm here for it. But it was just like the weird chair. I'm like, did you just get this on a discount? Like, they're just trying to offload this, like, old Game of Thrones stuff. And, like, I know that doesn't exactly tie into the themes around, like, you know, mission, vision, values, like, kind of more what you were talking about. But it's related of, like, you don't have to hop on every trend to stay relevant. And if you don't do it well, it looks really dumb and is probably doing the opposite of what you think it is.
Right. And maybe that's the strategy behind it all, because they're like, oh, well, we're so far behind the trend. Let's just, like, save some money and let's be a topic of conversation for the wrong reasons. Who really knows?
Right? I wish I knew someone over there to be like, did you guys do this last year and you just had it sitting around and you'd already paid for it? And you didn't even tie it into your brand. Like, it just was just like the weird throne sitting there years after the show ended. And, like, it would be like doing a Barbie theme right now, like with Barbie movie, and, like, and you'd think, okay, like, we liked it 2 years ago.
Exactly. And it comes down to, like, I can also kind of equate it to, like, the companies who call and say, like, well, can you just, like, come up with a logo? Well, what for what? Like, they're like, well, my event needs a logo. And you're like, okay, yes, sure. And it needs a visual direction and we need to have these guide rails and whatnot. But yeah, I think it all goes back to the strategy, which I know many of your guests kind of talk about quite often. And I think too, I had mentioned quite briefly about this at the beginning, but sure, there's that strategy bucket, but you have the cost bucket too, right? And so when you think about this from the overarching cost perspective of having, like, say you have 7 internal events for the whole year, and the cost perspective to have a different logo, a different visual direction, a different opening video, a different set of swag items that all now have different logos as a part of them, like, that gets quite costly,
right,
from the holistic perspective, versus when you can, you know, focus again right in on kind of that clear, cohesive design, the clear, cohesive message that goes along with it. That alone is table stakes from an event budget perspective, especially when so many times funding is always the events are the first thing that have to be cut, right?
And it's so annoying because
that's a very kind way of putting
like, I don't
it.
even know like a better word for it, because it is because of the lack of strategy. Like, your lack of strategy is costing you money, which you know, if you don't care about the strategy and you're like, like, if the strategy is obvious, okay, fine, we can debate that. But it's costing you money. Like you said, if you're ordering new different swag every single time, you're getting all new videos, you're now changing your vendors every single time, or you're sourcing different things. Like, that all takes time and costs money, right? Or, oh, we're going to have a new AV setup in every single city. Like, I used to do a road show years ago that was a town hall, and we used to run it like 8 times in 4 different city or 5 different city, and I can still hear the music in my head because it like it's there.
And I'm sure those people can hear it too, and they can remember what the goals and messages were from that.
And we had the same name. We used the same name year over year. We would change the logo a little bit. We didn't usually do swag, but we changed the logo a little bit to just like freshen it up, do a new intro video once a year. But it had consistency every year. People knew what that event was. They knew internally, okay, this is the time that the execs are going to come talk to us about the goals of the year, how we're performing, what we can expect, that kind of thing. And it just made it so much nicer to, okay, we can start without having to reinvent the wheel, right? And the number of times I've said to folks, like, why are we redoing this? Why are we rehashing something that we were so committed to 8 weeks ago, right? And, and what does that cost us? And, you know, I know when you change, and like people think, oh, it's just a last minute change. It's just a quick change. It's not a big deal. But we both know that, well, that increases your costs. You know, I used to have an exec that was notorious for last minute things. And they'd be like, well, what's the drop dead time for whatever, printing, whatever it was. And I said, it doesn't matter. Just give it to me when it's ready, and then I go figure it out, right? And you can't, because when I tell you the date, it's not going to matter because you're just going to give it to me when it's ready anyway. So
because if you have to ask the question, you already know you've probably missed the deadline anyways.
Exactly. And so then that's when that starts, right? Instead of saying, okay, if we're changing in every single city, well, now we need to reprint everything. I can't keep, I had, 20, 30, 40 pieces of swag left over, but now we want to change it again. And so now I'm like stuck with these socks or this hat or the shirt or whatever it is that like this will just, or like printed material, like banners, like how many banners do we need? How many banners do we need to change? I was just talking to a client yesterday and I said to her, she's doing a trade show for the first time and just needed some guidance. It's not a huge show, but I'm like, don't put too much on a pop-up banner. Just like keep it simple, like a logo, nice graphic, maybe a QR code on how to find you, your Etsy store. But like when you put 100 things on there, it's going to be irrelevant in a couple of weeks. You're not going to be able to reuse it, or it's too busy and people can't read it anyways, right? Like we try to do so much. We're like pushing so much stuff on people, and it's like, yeah, people aren't taking it all in, right?
Yeah, so, which also, I mean, which even your signage perspective, it like there are truly so many options that it's like overwhelming these days. But I come from a world where we used to do printed directional signage for everything because that's what made sense and that's kind of what worked. And then you see the increased technology these days that you can kind of rent just like the little LED poster boards, and all of a sudden all of your printed signage now becomes digital signage that you do have the ability, right, to quickly change if something changes, or you don't have to like worry about a reprint fee. And when you kind of look at that, sure, does a technology-driven LED poster from a digital signage perspective probably cost a little bit more from a rental perspective than all of this print signage? Yeah, maybe. But again, when you look at it holistically and see where your cost savings are across and can kind of look at it from that scale perspective from one show to the next, it probably balances out. But if you're not looking at it big picture and you're even still just focused on, well, let's focus on Chicago first, and then let's focus on Georgia, and then let's focus, if we're not looking at them holistically and instead we're looking at them individually, we're missing out before we even can spot the opportunity to have the savings strategically and the savings cost wise.
Yeah. And like how many times have I ordered signage that we never end up using, or now we had a sponsor sign up last minute and we can't include them, but if you did it digitally you could, because you would just update the file. Like it's just, it's so tiring when the budgets are always the first ones to be cut, but it's because the executives and other stakeholders are not committing to the strategy soon enough that you can actually make those decisions. And so you're paying these inflated rates, you're wasting you're throwing out signs that you never even took out of the package because you're like, well, this is irrelevant now. Like I've printed so many like foam core signs that I'm like, well, by the time I printed it, it was completely useless. And it's like, it's insane. And then it's like, oh, why do these events cost so much?
Yeah. Honestly, earlier this year, I did an event in Charlotte, and it was kind of around that same thing. Like it was a very quick turn event, public facing, like, and we were up against way too many quick turn deadlines. And at a certain point, whenever I ended up getting on site and like unpackaging all of the signage, I was like, why did I get like, I was like, we don't even need this sign. Why did this sign get printed? And then you sit back and you're like, it's because the print deadline was there and we were like, well, maybe we'll need it, maybe we won't. Yeah. So let's just do it just in case.
Yeah.
And then you unpack everything on site and you're like, well, nuts. I didn't need this, but here we are.
Yeah. Yeah. I know we're coming up to time, but really the moral of the story is, and the title of the episode is going to be, your lack of strategy is costing you money, right? And
it is.
I think it's the more that we can get our stakeholders to understand that and get on side with, okay, just because we can do it quickly doesn't mean we should do it quickly, and here's the benefit to not rushing these things, I think would make a huge difference for sure.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, not only is it costing you money, but like it's also costing you the money of time of your employees, right? Because you have these attendees coming to these meetings and it's not their everyday job, right? They're taking time out of their everyday job to attend these conferences, to attend these training sessions, and you're doing them a disservice if you're not delivering consistent and cohesive messaging for them to then act upon whenever they are back in their day to day. Yeah, it's the cost perspective and it's the time perspective too.
For sure. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being here. This is such a fun conversation. Where can people find out more about the work you're doing and find you online?
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm super active on LinkedIn. You can find me Steph Couch CMP on LinkedIn, on Instagram at Hey Steph Couch, and you can always stop by the ExperienceFin website at experiencefin.com.
Amazing. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks.